What happens when one of the most famous women in the world walks onto a late-night talk show expecting royal treatment, only to be met with questions she refuses to answer? In just 34 seconds of brutal honesty from the host, everything falls apart. This is the story of the most shocking guest removal in talk show history. Andy Cohen sits behind his desk at the Watch What Happens live studio, his signature energy filling the room as the cameras roll. The audience buzzes with excitement. Tonight's guest is supposed to be television gold. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, is scheduled to discuss her latest projects and her life beyond the palace walls. She walks onto the set in a designer outfit that probably costs more than most people make in a year. The audience applauds. Andy stands to greet her, extending his hand with genuine warmth. But something feels off from the very beginning. The way she barely makes eye contact. The way she sits down without waiting for his cue. The way she adjusts her chair as if the studio furniture isn't quite good enough. "Welcome to the show," Andy says, flashing his famous smile. "We're so excited to have you here." Meghan nods, offering a tight smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "Thank you for having me," she says, but her tone suggests she's doing him the favor. Andy starts with softballs. Easy questions about her podcast, her children, her favorite things about living in California. But with each question, Meghan's answers get shorter. More clipped, she keeps looking at someone off camera, presumably her publicist, as if checking whether she should even bother responding. "So," Andy continues, still keeping things light, "a lot of people want to know about your relationship with your father. Any chance of reconciliation there?" The temperature in the room drops instantly. Meghan's face hardens. "I don't think that's appropriate," she says coldly. "That's a private family matter." Andy, ever the professional, pivots smoothly. "Of course I understand. Let me ask you about something lighter. Your cookbooks have been really popular. Do you actually cook at home, or do you have chefs handling everything?" You can see the offense register on her face before she even speaks. "Are you implying I'm lying about cooking?" Meghan snaps. "That's incredibly insulting. I've been cooking since I was a child. Unlike some people, I don't need to fabricate authenticity." The audience goes silent. Andy's smile falters for just a second, but he recovers quickly. No, he says gently. "I wasn't implying anything. I was genuinely curious about your daily routine. A lot of celebrities talk about cooking, but hire help, and there's nothing wrong with that." But Meghan isn't having it. She crosses her arms, her body language screaming defensiveness. "You clearly have an agenda here," she says. "I came on this show in good faith, and you're attacking me." Andy takes a breath. The confusion on his face is genuine. "I promise you there's no agenda. These are standard questions. I ask all my guests about their personal lives." "Oh, I'm sure you do," Meghan says with a bitter laugh. "But when you ask me, it feels different. It feels targeted. Maybe you should examine why that is." The audience shifts uncomfortably. A few people exchange glances. This is not going the way anyone expected. Andy tries once more to steer things back on track. "Let's talk about your charity work," he offers. "You've been vocal about several causes. What are you most passionate about right now?" Meghan sighs dramatically, as if the question exhausts her. "I'm passionate about not being interrogated on television," she says. "Every question you ask feels like a trap, like you're trying to catch me in something." Andy's professionalism is being tested now, and you can see it. His jaw tightens slightly, but his voice remains calm. "I assure you, that's not what's happening here. I'm just trying to have a conversation." "A conversation?" Meghan repeats, her voice rising. "This isn't a conversation. This is an ambush. You invited me here under false pretenses." "What false pretenses?" Andy asks, and now there's a hint of frustration creeping into his tone. "You agreed to come on a talk show. This is what talk shows do. We talk." "Don't patronize me," Meghan shoots back. "I know what talk shows do. But there's a difference between talking and attacking. And right now, you're attacking. Andy leans back in his chair, visibly trying to maintain his composure. I'm literally asking you about cooking and charity work. If that feels like an attack to you, I don't know what to tell you. It's not what you're asking, Meghan insists. It's how you're asking it. The tone, the implication. I can read between the lines. There are no lines to read between, Andy says, his voice firm but still controlled. These are straightforward questions. The same questions I would ask anyone sitting in that chair. Meghan shakes her head. I seriously doubt that. But fine. Let's say you're right. Let's say these are just normal questions. Why does it feel like every single one is designed to make me look bad? Andy spreads his hands. How does asking if you cook at home make you look bad? How does asking about your charity work make you look bad? Please explain it to me, because I genuinely don't understand. Of course you don't understand, Meghan says bitterly. You've never been in my position. You've never had to defend every single thing you do, every single choice you make, every single word you speak. That's where you're wrong, Andy counters. I've absolutely been in that position. I've been criticized for my sexuality, my personality, my career choices, everything. But I don't walk into interviews assuming everyone is out to get me. Meghan's eyes flash. Maybe that's because they're not. Maybe that's because you're not the one they're really after. The audience stirs uncomfortably. This is getting personal in ways nobody anticipated. Andy takes a deep breath. Look, he says, trying one more time to reset the conversation. Can we start over? Can we just have a normal, friendly chat? I don't think that's possible at this point, Meghan says coldly. You've already shown me who you are. And what is that exactly? Andy asks, a slight edge finally creeping into his voice. Someone who pretends to be nice, but is actually just looking for drama, Meghan says. Someone who invites people on their show just to tear them down. Someone who gets off on making guests uncomfortable. Andy's jaw clenches. That is completely unfair and totally untrue. I've built my entire career on making guests feel comfortable and having fun conversations. Ask any of the thousands of people who have sat in that chair. Oh, I'm sure they all loved it, Meghan says sarcastically. I'm sure they all had a wonderful time being interrogated. By you. It's not an interrogation. Andy's voice rises for the first time. It's an interview. That's what you signed up for. Meghan stands abruptly, and the sudden movement startles everyone. I don't have to sit here and be disrespected, she announces to the room. I've dealt with enough hostility from the media to last a lifetime, and I certainly won't tolerate it from you. Andy stands too, trying to diffuse the situation. Please, sit down. Nobody is disrespecting you. If I said something that offended you, I apologize. But I think you're misinterpreting what's happening here. Misinterpreting? Meghan's voice reaches a new pitch. Don't gaslight me. I know exactly what I'm experiencing. You're treating me like I'm some nobody who should be grateful for your attention. The audience is dead silent now. Some people look shocked. Others look uncomfortable. A few are pulling out their phones, sensing that something historic is happening. Andy spreads his hands in a gesture of peace. I treat all my guests with respect, he says firmly. You're a public figure who agreed to a public interview. I'm asking you questions that the audience wants to hear answered. That's literally my job. Your job, Meghan scoffs. Your job is to sit here and tear people down for entertainment. Well, I'm not playing that game. I'm not tearing anyone down, Andy says, and now his patience is clearly wearing thin. But I am going to push back when you're being unreasonable. You've been defensive and hostile since you sat down. I've asked you normal questions that any talk show host would ask, and you've treated every single one like a personal attack. Meghan points a finger at him. How dare you call me hostile? Do you know what I've been through? Do you have any idea what it's like to be scrutinized every single day of your life? Andy doesn't back down. Actually, yes. I've been in the public eye for decades. I've been criticized, mocked, and judged. But when I agree to do an interview, I show up ready to engage, not ready to fight. Oh, so now you're the victim? Meghan's laugh is sharp and bitter. That's rich. A powerful white man in media claiming victimhood. The audience gasps. The conversation has taken a turn into territory that nobody expected. Andy's face flushes, but he keeps his composure. This has nothing to do with any of that, he says quietly. This is about you coming on my show and refusing to participate in good faith. I've been nothing but welcoming, and you've been combative from the moment you arrived. Welcoming? Meghan throws her hands up. You've been condescending. Every question drips with judgment. But I guess I should expect that from someone like you. Someone like me? Andy repeats. What exactly does that mean? Meghan doesn't answer directly. Instead, she turns to the audience. You all see this, right? You see what he's doing? The audience doesn't respond. They're too stunned to react. A few people look away, embarrassed by the spectacle. Andy takes a deep breath. Okay, he says. I think we need to take a break. No, Meghan snaps. We don't need a break. We need to end this. I'm done being subjected to this kind of treatment. You're not being subjected to anything except a standard interview, Andy says, his voice rising slightly for the first time. And frankly, your behavior right now is making it very clear why some people have had issues working with you. The words hang in the air. It's the first time Andy has really fired back, and Meghan's face goes pale with rage. Excuse me? She breathes. What did you just say to me? Andy holds his ground. I said your behavior is problematic. You came here with an attitude. You've been rude to me and dismissive of this entire process. And now you're trying to make yourself the victim. It's not working. Meghan's voice goes ice cold. You have no idea who you're talking to. I'm talking to a guest who is being incredibly unprofessional, Andy replies. And I'm not going to let you turn this into something it's not. You're the one who's been antagonistic. You're the one who's refused to answer basic questions. And you're the one who's trying to make this about everything except your own behavior. I will not be spoken to this way, Meghan says, her voice shaking with anger, by you or anyone else. I have more important things to do than sit here and be insulted by a talk show host who peaked 20 years ago. The insult lands, and you can see it in Andy's eyes, but he doesn't lash out. Instead, he nods slowly. The audience winces at the low blow, but Andy keeps his composure intact. That's an interesting perspective, he says evenly. Considering you're the one who wanted to be on this show, your people reached out to us, remember? Meghan's eyes narrow. That's irrelevant. It's completely relevant, Andy counters. You sought this platform. You wanted this interview. And now that you're here, you're acting like I forced you into the chair. Maybe I made a mistake, Meghan says coldly. Maybe I should have known better than to trust you. Trust me with what? Andy asks, genuinely confused. To ask you questions? That's literally what I do. That's what every talk show host does. You want to go on Fallon? He'll ask you questions. You want to go on Kimmel? He'll ask you questions. That's how this works. Not questions like these, Meghan insists. Questions like what? Andy's voice rises slightly in exasperation. About your life, your work, your interests? What exactly should I be asking you about? The weather? You could ask me about things I actually want to discuss, Meghan suggests sharply. I tried that, Andy exclaims, throwing his hands up. I asked about your podcast. I asked about your charity work. You gave me one-word answers and attitude. What am I supposed to do with that? Meghan doesn't answer. She just stares at him with barely concealed contempt. Andy takes a moment, visibly trying to collect himself. You know what? He says calmly. You're right. You do have more important things to do. And so do I. So why don't we just end this now? Meghan blinks, apparently not expecting him to agree. Fine, she says. I'm leaving. Actually, Andy says, his voice steady and clear, I'm asking you to leave. This is my show, and I don't allow guests to come on and treat me or my staff with disrespect. You've crossed that line multiple times in the last 10 minutes. The audience gasps again. This is unprecedented. Hosts don't kick guests off shows. Not like this. Not live. Someone's phone camera flash goes off. The moment is being captured from every angle. Meghan's mouth opens and closes. She looks around as if searching for someone to intervene. Her eyes dart to her publicist, who stands frozen at the edge of the stage, clearly unsure how to handle this situation. You can't be serious, she finally says, her voice a mixture of disbelief and fury. I'm completely serious, Andy responds, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. I've given you multiple chances to have a normal conversation. You've chosen confrontation at every turn. I'm not going to reward that behavior with more airtime. This is outrageous, Meghan sputters, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Do you know who I am? And there it is. The question that seals everything. The question that confirms every suspicion the audience has been forming for the past 15 minutes. The sense of entitlement laid bare for everyone to witness. Andy's expression hardens. Yes, he says quietly but firmly. I know exactly who you are, and that's why I expected better. But clearly, I was wrong to have those expectations. I thought we'd have an interesting conversation between two adults. Instead, I got someone who can't handle basic questions without turning it into a confrontation. Meghan's hands ball into fists at her. Sides. How dare you? She hisses, her voice low and venomous. You have no idea what I've been through. You have no idea what it's like to be constantly judged and criticized. You're right, Andy acknowledges. I don't know exactly what you've been through, but I do know what it's like to be in the public eye. And I know that part of that is sitting down for interviews and handling questions with grace, even when they're uncomfortable. That's part of the job you signed up for. I didn't sign up to be attacked, Meghan retorts. And I didn't attack you. Andy's frustration finally breaks through. I asked you normal questions. The same questions I would ask anyone. But you came in here looking for a fight, and when I wouldn't give you one, you created one anyway. The truth of his words seems to hang in the air. Several audience members nod slightly, though they try to hide it. Meghan looks like she's been slapped. Her face flushes red, and her hands ball into fists at her sides. You will regret this, she hisses. When people hear about how you treated me, your career will be over. Andy shakes his head. My career will be fine. The cameras have been rolling this entire time. Everyone watching will see exactly what happened here. They'll see that I tried repeatedly to have a civil conversation, and they'll see how you responded. For a long moment, Meghan just stares at him. The fury in her eyes is palpable. But she seems to realize that she's lost this battle. There's no spinning this. Not when it's all on tape. You're making a huge mistake, she says, her voice low and threatening. The only mistake I made was thinking this would be a good interview, Andy replies. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time to leave my set. If you refuse, I'll have security escort you out. Your choice. The studio is so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. Everyone is holding their breath, waiting to see what happens next. Meghan looks around one more time, perhaps hoping someone will come to her defense. But the crew members avoid her gaze. The audience sits frozen. Even her own publicist, visible now at the edge of the stage, looks mortified. Finally, Meghan grabs her purse from beside her chair. This isn't over, she says. Yes, Andy says firmly. It is. Meghan turns on her heel and storms off the set. Her footsteps echo in the silent studio. A door slams somewhere off stage, making several audience members jump. Andy stands there for a moment, processing what just happened. Then he turns to the camera with a weary smile. Well, he says to the viewers at home, that was something. I want to apologize to everyone who tuned in expecting a fun, lighthearted interview. That's certainly what I was hoping for. But sometimes things don't go according to plan. He pauses, running a hand through his hair. I've been doing this job for a long time, he continues. I've interviewed thousands of people. Some interviews are great, some are okay, and some are challenging. But I've never had to ask a guest to leave before. It's not something I wanted to do. But I also can't allow someone to come into this space and behave that way, no matter who they are. The audience begins to applaud. Slowly at first, then building into a standing ovation. Andy looks genuinely surprised and touched by the response. Thank you, he says. That means a lot. I always try to be fair and respectful to my guests, and I expect the same in return. Tonight, that didn't happen, but I stand by my decision. He takes a breath and squares his shoulders. We're going to take a quick break, he tells the camera. When we come back, we'll have some fun segments planned, and hopefully we can end the night on a better note than this. Stay with us. The camera cuts away, and the studio erupts in chatter. Audience members are talking over each other, pulling out their phones, texting their friends about what they just witnessed. The crew members are huddled in groups, discussing the unprecedented moment in hushed, excited tones. Andy sits back down at his desk, visibly exhausted. A producer rushes over to check on him, but he waves them off with a tired smile. He knows this moment will define the conversation for weeks to come. He knows the clips will go viral within minutes. He knows there will be think pieces and hot takes and endless debate. But in this moment, sitting at his desk after the most bizarre interview of his career, Andy Cohen knows one thing for certain. He did the right thing. He set a boundary. He refused to be treated poorly on his own show. And he did it all while maintaining his professionalism, even when his guest completely abandoned hers. The entitled behavior, the manufactured outrage, the refusal to engage in good faith, the personal attacks, the threats, and finally, the dramatic exit. All of it captured on camera for the world to see. What started as a simple talk show appearance spiraled into a masterclass in what not to do as a guest. Meghan Markle came onto the show expecting deference, perhaps even adoration. What she got instead was a host who refused to be bullied, who stood his ground, and who ultimately showed her the door. Andy's questions were standard. His approach was professional. His patience was remarkable. But none of it mattered to a guest who arrived ready for a fight. And when that guest finally pushed too far, Andy did something that very few hosts have ever done. He ended the interview on his terms. The audience witnessed something raw and real, not a scripted moment or a planned controversy, but a genuine clash between two people with very different ideas about respect and professionalism. On one side, a host trying to do his job. On the other, a guest who seemed to believe she was above the basic courtesies that every other interview subject extends. In the end, it took just 34 seconds for Andy to make his position clear. 34 seconds to draw a line. 34 seconds to show that no amount of fame or title exempts someone from basic decency. The cameras captured every uncomfortable moment, every defensive response, every escalation, every warning that went unheeded. And when Meghan finally stormed off that set, she left behind more than just an empty chair. She left behind a perfect example of entitlement meeting accountability. Andy didn't seek this confrontation. He didn't want to become part of another controversy. But when forced to choose between maintaining his dignity and appeasing a difficult guest, he chose himself. He chose his show. He chose his standards. And in doing so, he gave the audience a moment they would never forget. A moment where someone finally said enough, where the word no actually meant something, where consequences existed for poor behavior, regardless of who was behaving poorly. This wasn't about media bias or hidden agendas or personal vendettas. This was about one person showing up ready to work and another person showing up, ready to wage war. And when those two approaches collided, only one could prevail. The victor was clear from the moment Andy asked Meghan to leave his set. Not because he was louder or meaner or more aggressive, but because he was right. And sometimes being right is enough.